So in under 5 hours, we discovered that Sam Bankman-Fried was found guilty on all 7 charges against him. Now, I'm covering Solana today because I covered it recently and a lot of people have asked for an exit plan. I don't actually hold it, but I will give you my honest thoughts in terms of what I would do. I've already planned out a little bit, but I've also got the BTC pair to look at. The reason why this is important as well in terms of the time frame is because, as we know, Sam bought this coin at 20 cents. He was pretty much, a big part of it in terms of its growth in the initial phases, which it doesn't take anything away from the technology or what it was. It's just nice to have influential people at the time to be a part of it. Now, I may be wrong, thinking that it would have gone to crash and burn. Nothing's really bad came out of the court case, which is good for Solana holders. I don't want people to get wrecked because of, said one person, bushy hair boy, likes to do things naughty, creating problems. It's happened before in the past where terrible things happens to good assets because of an idiot or one person or someone within the team stole money or did something daft, right? So let me make that clear. But this is huge for crypto. It's something to draw a line under the sand with, in my opinion. But let's get on to the video. Let's talk about Solana because I think cryptocurrency now, in my opinion, will evolve. Getting rid of the bad actors, being more self-aware of regulations, and most importantly, exchanges and funds of monies of people that they should be held responsible of. Let's be honest. Now, let's talk about the obvious. This is Solana. Hello, Solana. Welcome to Solana. It has hit a key level, and it has bounced off it like a bloody, car crash. Let's be honest. Big level here. Now, depending on where you held your bags from, which is going to be important, I would even say that this is not a bad level to be taking something off the table, depending obviously where you bought your monies from and where you bought your Solana. If you were buying Solana at these lows, this level isn't a bad place to be right now. You're probably thinking, whoa, 5x. It pretty much is, which is quite scary in the grand scheme of things. Now, this is why I'm going to put this as a potential TP 10% if you've bought low enough. Caveat to that, if you bought low, right? More importantly, have you? Well, most people probably have not. But as I say, not a bad place to be considering where the lows have been, or if you've been buying around $12, $13, $14. Going up to $40, not to be sniffed at. And it's a big weekly level, right? The next one is kind of obvious. It's up here. You can see it. And I've already pre-planned it just to speed up the process because I know it's quite boring for some of you. Why don't I just copy and paste? That would be probably the easiest one. We'll do that. It's much easier, much quicker too. That has to be another 10%. This has to be. Get some money out. If you were buying at say $20 and you're at $80 and you've not taken anything off the table, even 10% to reward yourself, you should. Remember, my previous video, which feel free to go and watch and check out on the channel, was talking about planning. Planning when not to buy, planning what you're buying, how much you're going to buy for, but also the plan should also involve your exits, taking from the market what should be yours because you've went and made that conscious decision. I want to buy Solana at this price. I should probably take some money off the table right now. I mentioned it this morning on Learning Crypto live stream, and this is really, really important. Psychology, right? And a lot of people ask me, why do I take money out before it's fully got to its full amount or its full potential? You don't know where it's going to go. You can't plan the future. You cannot plan where it's physically going to end up. This is why I say taking profits too early, as in your whole bag, is a problem, but also taking profits too late is a bigger problem because you're leaving money on the table. You've got to have a fine balance, and the fine balance is actually taking a little bit off as you go, right? That kind of makes more sense. By the way, link below, Learning Crypto, £15 a month to get all courses, daily content, trades, services, everything, the lot. £15, it's nothing, right? Moving on. Next one, an obvious one. We're on the weekly time frame. It's bloody obvious. Let's be honest here. Key levels are huge, and this is another beautiful key level here on Solana. Let's remove that old box. Bosh. I would probably say take 20% out on this point. It's kind of obvious. Now, as much as I'm not a holder of this, it's just psychology of charts, and you're just looking at certain things. But also, don't get muddied in just the technicals because you got to look at the fundamentals, right? The fundamentals, right? This is important as well. Let's talk about this. What if the chart gets up to here and then something happens, something bad happens in the market? What about if something like like, I don't know, something really bad in the Solana ecosystem happens, and you probably get a bit of like, oh, hold on, you might want to take more than 20% out at that point. That still means you've still got potentially 40% in the market, maybe 60% in the market if you're sticking to these rules, but you may want to take more out depending on when you bought. If you were buying at, say, 17, 18 cents and you were taking, say, 20, 30% out here, you've done all right. You've done well, right? Regardless, we could still go higher, as we may well know. Obviously, going a bit further up as well, every single time it's doing more multiples and getting to a certain point, it's getting very, very interesting. I'm not going to be using this level. I'm going to go a little bit higher to this point here, right? Why go to that point? Because you want to get a bit of a breathing room. You don't want to be going too clumped, right? Especially on these higher time frames, certainly if you're an investor. Now, that's going to be important, but I would say probably take 10% out at this point, because realistically, if you're at that point, you've got 50% out the market, 50% out the market before it really goes crazy. From there on, that 50% mark of being out the market, if you got here, you've done well. This is where you then, obviously, as you know, if you've been watching these videos, you've got to negotiate the market as per what could happen next. From literally this point onwards and much higher, it could be just a let it run scenario. Let's be fair here. You know, you've just got to think of the obvious. If you've still got 50% in, you know, let it run. If you're ever going to do it that way, that's kind of the easiest way of doing it. That's the point. You do not know where it's going to go. It may never get anywhere near these levels. Let's be honest here, it might not, but it might do. You just don't know. But I would rather have some money out the market than being fully all in and it never getting anywhere near it, and then all of a sudden you notice that like things are just going really well and you're like, yeah. And then it just does this and it just keeps on melting and melting and melting. You've taken nothing and you've round tripped yourself, which is the worst thing in the world. Apologies for the dog. Anyways, let's look at the BTC pair quickly, because I think this is very, very important too. A lot of people forget about the BTC pairs, myself included sometimes, even though I often talk about it. You got to look to see what's going to be happening. Now, again, oh dear, this one is very, very straightforward, right? So, you know, we can look at certain levels. I want to speed through this a little bit quicker because it makes more sense. This is an obvious level, right? Where this region is, you can see that's a beautiful level. If you've been buying these lows or even these lows here, that's a decent run, especially in the BTC pair. You may well have made a decent pocket of cash there. Another one, an obvious level here, cool. Another level is also very obvious, is obviously here. Now for me, I don't want to go too deep in terms of how far this can go, because the difference is it depends on what Bitcoin does and obviously the altcoins as well. Bitcoin may well slaughter these in the short term if there's an ETF acceptance, but we'll see how it goes. For me, you know, 10%, and probably 20% up here is probably good in terms of a starting point, in terms of where this could actually physically be. But remember, for every time this goes up in Satoshis in value, that's really, really impressive, considering if you were buying at these lows here and you're already up here. Let's be honest here, that's like, you know, you've doubled the amount of Bitcoin that you had in terms of that first initial investment, which is crazy considering how valuable BTC can become in the future and how good it is as an equalizer of your portfolio. Before we go, obviously, from this point onwards, as we probably can expect, you know, a bit of a let it run situation. Who knows where this can go? You know, let's be honest, if you've still got, say, 40% in the market or even 50%, whatever, I don't know, we'll say 50%, in the market, you want to, you know, let it run. Because, as I say, you don't know what's going to happen with altcoins in this new cycle. You just have no idea what could happen here. It could fly, but it also may not get anywhere near this point. But you may well be just looking at your USD pairs because Bitcoin's doing so well to make USD. So you've got to be somewhat mindful. Anyways, enough of me wabbling on and talking randomness, but realistically here, you could have a decent chunk out of the market, whatever it is. Obviously, feel free to do whatever you want with the numbers, but you got to look at these key strategic levels where things have like literally stopped and turned around at some point. Price may well go back up to them, right? But realistically though, you want to make some money somewhere. Reward yourself. Anyways, check out the Patreon if you want to jump into more content. And yes, I'll be back again very, very soon.